All right. Welcome, everyone, to the monthly Spark Talk. My name is Lisa Blue, and I'm the Director of Artificial Intelligence Strategies, and we're broadcasting today from our brand new Zoom account, AI at eku.edu. It's really exciting how we're growing and doing cool things here at Eastern Kentucky University. Through the Spark Talks, I hope to demystify generative AI while sparking conversations that inspire innovative teaching and learning strategies in higher education. We're very glad you're here today. Each month, we'll share insights and practical strategies for integrating Gen AI into your teaching, research, and service obligations. My goal is to enrich your teaching methods, empower our students, and promote the ethical, responsible use of AI while preparing students for the tech-driven job market they'll face post-graduation. Today, I'm excited to highlight the work of Dr. Emily Zuccaro. She's an associate professor in our Department of Teaching, Learning, and Educational Leadership. So, Emily, I will let you take it away.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Emily Zuccaro. I am, so as Lisa mentioned, I'm an associate professor and I'm a literacy and language teacher educator. So I teach a lot of classes that have to do with reading and writing, children's literature. I'm also responsible for our English as a second language program at EKU. So I do a lot of work with multilingual students as well. And I'm excited to talk to you about what I have been trying on in my children's literature class with AI and just kind of inviting everyone to discuss and ask questions and learn together about how we can use this in our classes. We are going to start off with a breakout room reflection. And so as we get into our breakout rooms, I'd like you to note the name of your breakout room. Lisa has come up with some really creative titles for your breakout room. So make sure that's the first thing you do. Introduce yourselves, select a scribe who can write down takeaways, and then choose one to share with the larger group when we come back to the large room. And as we get into our breakout rooms, we're going to be reflecting on these three questions. What's your current perception of artificial intelligence? Does it excite you, concern you, or spark curiosity, and why? Have you experimented with AI tools? If yes, have you used them personally or professionally? In what ways? And what opportunities or challenges do you see for AI in higher ed? How might it impact student learning, academic integrity, your own teaching practices, so on and so forth? Are we all set, Lisa?
Yes, we are all set. So, I just dropped a link in the chat. The slides and the resource guide for this talk can be found at, I just found this cool new tool. It's called edushare.ing at /AI children's list. So if you click on that link, you'll see these instructions copied in that resource guide. If you're interested in using this ad-free link sharing option, credits due to Brett Warner. You'll see his information whenever you click on edushare.ing. I have created the breakout rooms, but for some reason, not everybody has populated into them. So once I open the breakout rooms, if you don't have a room, sit tight and I will move you over to one. We'll take about 10 minutes to work on this, and then when we come back, we will share what we discovered. So I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms, and if you're not assigned to one, sit tight, I'll move you over. Okay, does anyone from the creativity cortex want to share what you discussed? Everybody's going to be quiet today. We're all friends here, and we've got a really small group. There's like 20 of us today.
I don't know which group I was in, but
You were in the Chatbot Cafe. So
oh,
what did you all talk about?
so the perceptions were we were excited, we were curious about AI. We think that it offers great tools. It gives us some of our time back. As far as have we used AI, we did have some in our team who have actually used AI for recommendation letters, podcast scripting.
Fun.
Yeah, we did them. I think the main concern was one of our participants was concerned about, of course, I think she taught a writing class, so her concern was that a lot of students, she was getting a lot of students were pretty much using AI generated script as their and turning it in as their own. So that's a main, I guess, concern or issue.
Right, and actually we'll address some of that today. All right, how about the digital dilemma den? Ashley, Carla, Katie, and Yoshi.
I'm gonna throw Yoshi under the bus. She took notes. So she took the
I can
notes.
help. Okay, well, let me see if I can read my notes, because I just there were some keywords that came up and I thought it was great, so I just kept writing. So hopefully I can summarize well here. But some of the things I think that the recurrently came up was that the AI as a tool, and that what is the purpose of it, and also that some feelings is, it is an opportunity and exciting, but also scary, so that the user's feelings, and then also that the some ethical issues that we are concerned about using, and then also that the one of the group member has experience, or the few of the group members had experience using like exam preparation and so forth.
Very good. Thank you so much, Carla and Yoshi. All right, fantastic. Well, as we move on today, since we are a really small group, if you want to drop your comments or questions in the chat or just raise your hands, I'll be moderating the chat while Emily talks to us about how she applied this in her children's life class.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. Oh, Lisa, do you want to, sorry, we rearranged this.
Before I let you talk about this, my apologies. So what we're seeing in the AI space is we're shifting from this product-based pedagogy where we assign a term paper or a final project, and we kind of let students just work all the way through this and then submit that final project or final paper for a grade. And I'm seeing that the way people tend to make their AI assignment or make their assignments a little more AI resistant, or to be able to monitor students is to make it more of a process-based pedagogy where students have multiple check-ins. You're not allowing AI use to run unfettered. And so you're not going all the way to the end and getting this final product, and it's very obviously all AI generated. So Emily, do you feel like you've made this shift from product to process-based pedagogy?
I definitely have. And you'll see in a couple of minutes about some of the projects that I've been asking students to use AI on. And in previous iterations of the children's lit class that I teach, I would have asked them just to turn in the product. Like, here's the assignment, turn it in, move on kind of thing. Like, we usually do a lot of like in-class discussions and like things like a gallery walk, and like we do a lot of things in class. And so that's still part of my class, but I'm asking them to provide evidence or documentation of how they were creating as they turned in the product. And it's mostly in this case like screenshots, which you'll see in a second, but it's something I've never asked my students to do before was,
Right.
don't just turn this in, turn in the screenshots, especially in this kind of class.
Sure. Yeah. And the goal is to make sure that their thought processes are transparent. So you can see how much was the AI, how much is reflective of their own critical thinking and creativity. And we really want to make sure that they're critically evaluating all of those AI outputs. Does this reflect how you really feel about that material you interacted with? Does this really feel right to you? Do you think you're hitting the student learning outcomes for the assignments? And it's also helpful for them to reflect on when they use AI as a tool. Did they use it? Should they not have used it? Did they use it appropriately? And all this feeds into maintaining that academic integrity. If we're talking about different methods by which we can document AI use, then we're making sure that it's transparent and students are being forthcoming about how they use the AI tools. And the best thing about this is I think we're really making that switch from just trying to generate a product to really focusing on how the students learn. And I think that's beneficial for all involved, because as these AI tools continue to evolve, we all have to keep learning. We all need to become lifelong learners, whether that was our intention with a 4-year degree or not. All right, so starting down this road of a process-based pedagogy, what was the first thing you did with your students?
Yeah, so
Did it
this is
start
all
with your course policies?
yes, this is all part of a personal journey for myself. So I really started like looking at AI stuff last summer, and I really took like a deep dive into looking at all AI things because I knew my students were using it, and I knew that if I had to talk to them or teach them about it, then I had to start using it. Um, and I really believed that I had to get a hold on it, like understand it, harness it, get a command so I could actually learn with my students and also model like how we're learning together about AI in teacher education. That's where I live, is like preparing future elementary teachers in the teaching of reading and writing, and language teaching too. So I started with an AI course policy, and I scoured this Google document that's part of the resource guide. And it's basically just a collection of policies that people post on this Google document, and it's very, very, very comprehensive. It's very long. Lots of policies are on there. So it's important to spend some time maybe articulating what's your policy. How do you see your policy in your class? Are you going to use it? Are you not going to use it? Are you going to use it in certain ways? And you have to really articulate that in your syllabus. So in my syllabus, I made sure to explain that we were going to use AI tools and explain how that aligned with course objectives. In my children's literature class, we have a information resource technology and tool objective. And also I strongly believe in the power of discourse, dialogue, talking about stuff. So I really want to make sure that we would have this open environment to talk about AI all the time. And I also put a line here about how I believe it's critical for future teachers, as our educational landscape is changing, to become more aware of how we can use it and use it in a way that's ethical, not stifling our creativity, our critical thinking, use ways that enhance our learning and all kinds of things. And you can see I adopted from University of Queensland and Pennsylvania. I also put here a line, which I'll explain in a second, about creating a class agreement on AI tools. This is really important to me, to create some sort of document that was created by the entire class. It was a way to buy into the use of AI, and it was also sort of like a shared governance piece where we all made it, we all agreed to use it, and it's going to be a living document that stipulates like our, the way we orient to AI in the class. I also put some things that I thought was important, like disclaimers to them. The generated material may be inaccurate, incomplete, problematic sometimes. It may stifle creativity and independent thinking. And most importantly, this was important too, was not submitting work as your own. So it had to be cited. It had to have some sort of indicator that you used AI. And so that was really important to me to have these policies in place, like going from like the head down. So like I had to have a course policy. And then I went to a training last summer, and this was adopted. There's an AI stoplight, and actually a woman in Northern Kentucky University had made some sort of AI stoplight for NKU, and I thought it was the most magical, genius thing ever. And so I adopted it the way I thought would be great at EKU. And so basically it's a stoplight system. So you have the green flag is AI is allowed and may be required. Yellow flag is AI is allowed, might be restricted, or have a really structured set of guidelines for how to use it. Red flag is absolutely no use whatsoever. And that's where the whole violating the policy and stipulated in our course student agreement is what happens when you violate the policy.
Carl's got a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering with the stop sign scenario, do you put this next to specific assignments or projects or whatnot? Okay, as well as in your syllabus, but when they see that throughout the course, they know, oh, I can do it here or I can't do it here.
Yes, great question. Yeah, so you'll see an assignment that I unpack. When I introduce the assignment sheet has a green flag on it. So I was like, I want you to use it. Please use it. In a different assignment, we do book talks in my children's lit class, and I actually make that a yellow flag assignment. So I'm curious. I don't want them to do AI in a free, do whatever you want kind of thing. I want them to have, you can do it in this way, and you have to document it and submit it this way. So they're familiar with this in the syllabus, and then I have it posted on the assignments that I use every semester. And this is the second time I've used this. So in the fall was the first time I actually used AI in this way with the course policy, student agreement, and the stoplight system. And the spring semester is my second time learning, responding to, evolving, tweaking, that sort of thing. So I got my students together. I found example student agreements online. I found some exemplars that I really liked. I had them sit in groups. I had them review example student agreements for the use of AI in our class. I had them create their own student agreement. If they liked the wording of certain ones, I asked them to document which one they liked, but tweak it for our class. So if they liked a certain idea, how would it fit in the scope of a children's literature class? And then I submitted them all to a Google form. We all voted on them. And that became our adopted AI course agreement. And if they finished in the meantime, they explored AI tools related to the course objectives, like book recommendations, reading responses, so on and so forth. This is my spring class example. So I have two sections face-to-face. This is class A. I have 13 students. And I'm not going to read them line by line, but basically you can see a collection of ideas for responsible use, making sure that it's not hindering their ability or quality of work, disclosing the use, having equal access. That's a really important one I'll point out right here is we always use the free version of things. I never required students to buy anything. If they did, it was their own personal choice because of the features they liked or that sort of thing. But we always worked on a free platform. And I also like how they talked about reputable sources. So if they were going to generate something from AI, making sure it's actually reputable, credible, and that sort of thing. And then class B, I have 29 students in that class, so it's not as many here, but there's still some very similar ideas here about having the necessary skills and knowledge to use AI effectively, not using it to harm others, reviewing it for bias and mistakes, and making sure that we're honest about using it and that we're not turning in that's not fully my own by AI. So these were two examples for my students this spring semester, and so far it's been so good so far, and these were very similar to my fall class agreement as well. Are we good with the chat, Lisa?
You're all good.
Okay. Okay, so I want to talk about how I used ChatGPT and Canva and how I encourage my students to use this as a way to enhance assignments. So in my children's literature class, I've taught this class like 10 times, we do whole class novels and choice novels. And so they read 3 whole class novels, and then there is a collection of 5 books from one category and 5 books from another one, and they choose one of those. And so the whole semester they read 5 novels. And every time they read a novel, I ask them to turn in a 1-pager, which is NCTE has this, it's a visual reading response where there's a collection of guidelines that they have to respond to with, a border, definitions, connections, recommendations for how someone wants to read the text, images that are from the book themselves, and that sort of thing. So I asked my students to draw on AI, and it was a pretty broad direction. So I didn't tell them anything then. I want you to use AI for this 1-pager. It's a green flag assignment. And I spent time documenting how they used it throughout the semester for each novel. And so I want to show you some examples for how students are using it. And at this point in the fall, it was purely observational. I just wanted to see how my students knew how to use AI. I did not know what they knew. So I had to ask them, and I had to create a place where I was giving them the credit that they were abiding by the agreement and that they were going to document and turn in what they did. And it was actually really fun to see how they were creating. So this student read Maisie Chen's Last Chance, and I want to point out some features. This is a really great one-pager where she has a quote as the border, and so it repeats all around the edge. She has images from the text. She has a connection, why someone wants to read it. She has some quotes, some definitions, and that sort of thing. This is a really nicely done one-pager for her novel. So I want to point out your attention to this bear statue right here. So this student asked ChatGPT, create an image of a bear statue. And this is what ChatGPT generated, a pretty intense looking bear statue. And the student did not think that that was, representing what she thought should be in her one pager. So she asked, can you make it 7 foot tall and friendly? So that was documenting her conversation with ChatGPT and how she imagined, and this is a traditional novel. There's no pictures. So she's really imagining like what it looks like. And so she wanted to tweak this bear statue image to see what it actually aligned to her understanding and her visualization of what was happening in the novel. So she copied and pasted that, and this is what she turned in for her documentation, was her conversation with ChatGPT. Starfish, another phenomenal novel, is a verse novel about a girl who has a lot of body positivity themes running through the text. And starfish is the way she imagines herself floating in the pool, sprayed out kind of thing. And so this student did a phenomenal job. And you can still see here the guidelines of the assignment are still here. She has the border, she has the connection, some references, recommendations, some quotes. And she asked Canva to generate this image. So you can see in the original submission, it's just a starfish and a girl, and the reflection is in the pool. But she asked that her reflection is also a starfish. And so you can see here in her submission, the girl is also a starfish as the backdrop. This is a great way of enhancing her assignment. It's not taking away from the other parts of comprehension and responding and that sort of thing, but it's a great way to create this beautiful backdrop for her takeaways for the novel. We also read Song for a Whale. And so this is another way that a student used Canva, whale and a girl, and you can see all the things that she has, the border, the quotes, the connections, recommendations. So again, all the parts of the assignment are here, but she used Canva as the backdrop for her one-pager. This is really interesting. I had a student, she asked ChatGPT what to tell Canva for an image generator. So she asked ChatGPT a good description to put into an AI image generator to create an image from the characters from the book When the Stars Are Scattered. So it's interesting to think about that first example, Maisie Chen's Last Chance. She asked for an image, right? So ChatGPT gave her an image. And then this person asked for language to give a different AI image generator the image from the book. So, and you can see here the description is very, very specific. And there are the two brothers for When Stars Are Scattered for her one-pager. Not every student did Canva as their platform. I invited students to do it by hand if they wanted to, or physically create their one-pager. So this student did something on her tablet, and you can see this is for Song for a Whale, and it's about the protagonist is a deaf and hard of hearing girl who loves to restore vintage radios. And again, you can see all the components of the assignment here. And she asked ChatGPT, what's the most likely model of the radio from her description in the book? So again, this is a traditional novel. There's no pictures. And so ChatGPT responds with, this is what the Philco 70 or Philco 90 model looks like. Distinctive cathedral shape, rounded top, wooden casing, iconic large dial. And what I love most about this is that she asked, what quote tells you that? So she was looking for a page reference. How do you know, ChatGPT, that this is like what the model is? And ChatGPT says there isn't a direct quote, but it suggests it's a classic older Philco model. And so it's an inference based on her fascination with restoring vintage radios. So a lot of interacting with ChatGPT in that way, and this also builds to visualization. So, you know, I'm not familiar with restoring vintage radios. I couldn't tell you what a Philco 90 or 70 looks like. And it's a pretty distinctive feature centered in her one pager reading response. So ChatGPT really helped her visualize and then create this visual reading response, understanding what that radio looked like.
And I think this is a perfect example of how students can go deeper with the text and interact, because maybe the student wouldn't have realized that unless they had interacted with Chat GPT, and now they've got this better visual of what she was working with. I also wanted to point out that Chris said, this literacy assignment is awesome, and she loves how you incorporate AI into the task. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank
Yes,
you.
yes, thank you. Right back at you, Chris.
Thank you. Love that. Love that feedback.
Right.
Yeah, it's really great because and ultimately, because it's a class of our teacher education program, I'm always telling students like whatever I'm doing and having you do is what you can do with your students. So when I'm modeling, hey, when you read, create this one pager, and here are some guidelines and how to use, and obviously using AI with K through 12 students is a whole different conversation. But in turn, the whole modeling, like whatever I'm doing, you can do with this is the K through 5, really for elementary teachers class. So you can do one pagers with your students and thinking about how this builds into reading comprehension. I can tell students have read these novels by what they create on their one pagers. And in the whole conversation about product and process base, this is amazing process documentation. That they're talking to ChatGPT and asking, what's the model? How do you know that? And that sort of thing. And ChatGPT admitted there's not a direct quote, it's an inference. So they kind of develop these skill sets to become aware of like, is ChatGPT reliable in this minute?
Yeah,
Another example, go ahead, sorry.
I was gonna say, I really appreciate that they pushed back and said, how do you know for sure?
Loved
Instead
it.
of accepting it at face value.
Yes. I loved it so much. And so this is another example, violets are blue. This is another example this is a protagonist who has separated parents and her mother struggles with addiction. And so this person did it by hand. And she asked ChatGPT about online resources for how someone feels. And so ChatGPT gave her a feelings wheel, a mood tracker app, a journal example, and that sort of thing. And um, that's important in the course of children's literature because in my class, we also talk about developing resources related to books. So she might do an extension activity related to feelings using one of these resources that she found on ChatGPT. And you can see there's some links here and that sort of thing. And I didn't have this on the PowerPoint presentation, but she reflected later that she actually explored all these resources and she became familiar with a resource that had a lot of feeling discussions and how she might use that when she talks about children and their feelings in her class later. Another person did violets are blue on Canva, and you can see again that all the guidelines and the requirements for the assignment are here. And she actually asked ChatGPT for books on parent separation for children because the protagonist has parents who are separated. And so this would be a great way to build a text set. And it also created a conversation on making sure that the books that ChatGPT gave you were real because we've had instances where they were not real books. So we did a deep dark dive on making sure these were actually books, like looking on Goodreads or Amazon or the publishing company to make sure that they're actually books that ChatGPT recommended. Should I stop here and any questions or conversations? I can go to the student intervention next.
Do we have any questions that you'd like to ask at this time? We have more slides than we probably have time today, so that was a good time to ask questions. All right, well, if you think of them, pop them in the chat or raise your hand and we will address them as they come in.
So importantly was, there was a moment where a student copied and pasted like word for word from ChatGPT onto their one pager. It was the recommendation for why someone would want to read the novel. And she copied and pasted the entire thing from ChatGPT and she copied it and then submitted it. And the one thing about this whole AI use is that you can't recognize it until you've used it, so you know what to look for. So, and also I've taught this class so many times that I know when I ask a student to recommend a book, it should sound personal. There should be some kind of personal component to a recommendation. I think my dad would want to read this because he's really into restoring things. I think my mom would really like this because she's just a big reader and she likes to read a lot. There's usually some kind of personal piece in the recommendation part. And the student turned in something that sounded very, very formal and very detached and very kind of like boilerplate, like kind of just like a template that someone copied and pasted, didn't even take time to tweak it. So I talked to her after class and I said, I noticed that you submitted something that did not seem like it was your own words. It seemed like you just copied and pasted. And she was really upset and she was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, you need to revise it for the future. And if you need inspiration, that's totally fine, but you need to really insist that it's revised and that sort of thing. And it didn't happen ever again. She was completely mortified that she did it. And that was kind of midway into the semester. So we had built a lot of rapport talking about AI and revision techniques and documentation and that sort of thing. So by the time this incident occurred, I felt comfortable making it a pretty brief exchange. It wasn't punitive. It wasn't, first strike kind of thing. I was like, hey, just a heads up, and I kept looking for it after the fact to make sure that everything was okay.
Oh, thank goodness Carla has a question about this because she doesn't have questions. I'll ask them.
Just love to know if she gave you why she did it. Did she not have enough time? Was she just being lazy? Did she give you an excuse why she did it in the first place? After knowing what the policies were and everything.
Yeah, she told me that she thought that, trying to remember, it was back in the fall. She's trying to remember how she thought what she submitted was personal because I think she did tell me she changed like a word in it. I think she was like, oh, I changed a little bit of it, but she actually just like flip-flop two words or like it was still copied and pasted and she just kind of maybe rearranged the sentences a little bit. And I was like, I appreciate that you're explaining how you approach revision because she thought by changing like the structure of the copying, pasting. And I said, it's still completely someone else's or something else's thoughts. There's no you in this response. And when we make, again, going back to the authenticity of the task, when we make recommendations, it's because we think about what we know about the book and who would like it. So there has to be us in that answer. We have to have, you know, our connections to people and our connections to the text. And so I always think that the pieces of connecting and recommending should be incredibly obvious. They're personal.
Right, and I
Thank
really appreciate too that you caught her after class instead of sending her an email, which may have scared her away. Carla, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was dead.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. Because I worry about our online and especially our asynchronous students. What if they get this email? Hey, we need to chat, Oh gosh, what did I do? Or maybe they know exactly what they did and then they choose to disengage and just run away. So yeah, I feel for online asynchronous instructors. And I think maybe if we find a way to phrase that email very, very gently to just say, hey, I'm curious about how you used AI to complete this assignment and make it just totally non-confrontational and come with that really Socratic mindset, not that you're going to question them to death, but coming curious to know, let's talk about your AI usage because I'm trying to learn just like you are. Make it as gentle as you can.
Yes. That was the biggest part of this whole thing was in front of students saying, I'm still learning and I'm abiding by some basic guidelines and principles that I know to be true. And so I don't want it to stifle our, critical thinking, our creativity, our ability to develop as future classroom teachers. And so I shifted then from being really observational in the fall. So I'm still observing my students in the spring. So I'm still using a lot of things I did in the fall with my spring students, but now I'm going to try to teach my spring students about how they could use AI with assignments this semester. And so we do 2 presentations in class, and one's over an author, illustrator, poet, where they become familiar with like the author's life, how they became who they became, and their body of work, and a genre presentation. So biography, informational text, that sort of thing. And I used AI Exploria, which is a search engine for AI tools. And I typed in group collaboration. And then there's a category. You can see right here, there's a category field, and it drops down a bunch of things within group collaboration. What are you looking for? And I chose presentation because my students do a presentation. So I was looking for an AI tool that did presentations for group collaboration. And I investigated all of these apps, and I basically um, decided on Magic Slides down here, which is a freemium. Love that word, by the way, freemium. And I basically am going to introduce them on how they could use Magic Slides to create an outline for their presentations, but how they need to build the content of the presentation themselves. And I don't have a problem with AI tools for outlines because, that's actually not a bad way to use an AI tool is, hey, create an outline for a presentation. But then they have to go do the work. They have to go explore. If I'm talking about Jacqueline Woodson, they have to go explore her body of work. They can't just rely on the Magic Slides. And that's where the documentation comes in. Screenshots of where they look for Jacqueline Woodson's texts and how they created Magic Slides and that sort of thing. And Lisa, it's up to you now.
And so taking screenshots is one way that you can do this. There are 4 ways that I've got documented in your resource guide, plus a 5th way that I've seen popularized recently. The first way is using a boilerplate statement, which you put prominently in your syllabus. So you talk about it day 1. Hey, we're going to use AI in this class, and we're going to use it in this fashion. And with that boilerplate statement, it's important that students say, hey, I acknowledge I use this tool to do these things. And, give a detailed explanation. Did you use it to generate ideas, draft content, check grammar, translate text? Did you use it to do a deeper dive with the material and actually query the material so that you could better understand what occurred in the story? In all of these documentation methods, I have, and this is what we use here at EKU, I include this affirmation statement. And I think this affirmation statement is incredibly important because it asks students to affirm that they've taken all necessary steps to ensure the originality and accuracy of the material and data used in the assignment. And they certify this work represents their own creativity and critical thinking. And this links to our academic integrity policy. So all of this copied in that resource guide for you. The next one is a little bit less structured, and it's just a personal reflection. And so it asks students to write a reflective piece discussing your experience using AI tools in the assignment. And, why did you use it? How did you use it? What was the process? How did you integrate the information into your final product or the process that you're demonstrating for your instructor? How did you evaluate the AI contributions? How did you verify the accuracy? Was the AI just telling you what it wanted you thought you wanted to hear, or was it factually accurate? What was the impact on your learning? And then again, that affirmation statement that I feel is so very important. A third method of documenting AI use is a more extensive method. And so if you really want to interrogate how students are using the AI, you could ask them to submit a prompt appendix where they list all the prompts, all the output, and how they modified that output. And it could be something as simple as what Emily did, where they have to submit some screenshots, or you could ask them to copy and paste all of the text, again, concluding with that affirmation statement. The last method includes some discipline-specific guidelines. And so there are certain bodies out there, most notably the APA, the American Psychological Association, that has applied guidelines for citing work or content created by AI. The APA has specific guidelines on ChatGPT. The Modern Language Association actually has a task force talking about how to document AI usage, and the Chicago Manual of Style offers guidance. We also need to think about if we're doing this in the health sciences or in some field where we're working with people, we need to talk about the ethical norms related to the AI use. We want to make sure we're respecting confidentiality, privacy, consent, and data protection. We don't want any personally identifiable information out there in these large language models. Maybe we talk about use limitations or consultation requirements. Another method that I've seen discussed recently, Laura Duman gave a talk at the Teaching Professor Conference on AI back in December. And in her field of English, she doesn't really believe in citing AI because she doesn't feel that it's a factual source at all times. So instead, she has her students highlight in a different color what parts of the AI contributed compared to using a black font or a normal font to cite what they created. So with that in mind, we really want to make sure that you all leave here today and you can put what you've learned into action. And so we have offered some guidance to step you through this process. Putting things into action is sometimes hard. I had somebody email me yesterday and she said, I attended all 5 of your pre-semester workshops. Can you send me more information about creating course policies and redesigning my assignments to be AI resilient or AI embracing? And I was like, no, I gave you all of my best stuff. I think you just need to sit down and work through the material. It's so easy to be edutained these days. And so Emily and I would encourage you to think about, what does this have you thinking about your own teaching? How can you use what you've learned to foster creativity? How can AI support, challenge, or inspire new ideas? Oh, I'm sorry, Charles. I did not realize you couldn't hear me. How can you facilitate critical thinking by guiding students to question, analyze, and refine the AI-generated content? How can you personalize learning opportunities? That's one of the big selling points is, you can make personal learning experiences. Okay, how can I do that? Work with the AI to figure that out. You want to talk about enhancing student collaboration through AI tools, much the way that Emily did. And then maybe there's something unique to your field. Maybe there's specific challenges or opportunities that AI presents to your discipline. I know all of my journalism and School of Communication people have been hit especially hard about this because they're not sure how to integrate AI tools while remaining true to their journalistic challenges or, podcasting. Is it ethical or responsible to create these AI podcasts, or should this all be done from the human mind? So I would encourage you all to get together with some like-minded individuals and talk about how you can put these ideas into action, or even just do this on your own. Pick one assignment to work on, experiment with it, start exploring ideas. Ask the AI, how can I turn this into an active learning assignment? How could I incorporate AI to promote AI literacy and basic AI competencies? How could I enhance this assignment with AI? Definitely think about collaborating. It is so much more fun to have that special person you can run to and say, hey, look what I created. What do you think? Emily has that. She has a colleague in her department, and the synergy between these two is just incredible, watching them create. And then reflect, what worked? What surprised you? What will you tweak? Emily, did you have something to add here?
I just think the biggest aha for me was don't do a radical overhaul overnight. It's so overwhelming, and AI just changes like every second basically. So I think having like a system in place, like that stoplight system, really helps me articulate. I look at my activities and I'm like, okay, what is green, yellow, red? And then when it's green and yellow, in what ways am I going to, especially if it's yellow, it's a limited use, how am I going to help students understand how to use it in a structured way, So I think having a system to follow and not doing like an overhaul overnight of everything you're ever doing, because that's just so overwhelming.
Right. And you actually had an interesting use case in between Friday when we presented the last time and today. You were trying to help students pick appropriate texts that were kind of out of the norm for Black History Month. Can you describe how you did that?
Oh yeah. So I asked, I do Black History Month, but I talk about how Black History Month should be all year round. And I asked them to do a choice board, and I try to get them to do reading texts that are not just about civil rights and oppression. I'm trying to talk about Black achievement, Black joy. And so I actually had ChatGPT create. I have a choice board and I've used it, but every couple of semesters I'm curious about refreshing and getting new ideas. And so I asked ChatGPT to make another choice board for me, and it was beautiful. And I tweaked it a little bit. I actually combined it with my previous choice board, and it was a really nicely done choice board that was very thoughtful and multi-dimensional and just not about Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks for Black History Month.
Right, right. And much like you took your learning experience from NKU and used it to draft your own syllabus statements and use your stoplight method, I would encourage you all today to take what we've been doing here at EKU and use that as a springboard for creating your own course policies and maybe your own student agreements. And so bringing it all together, you know, get with a group and then ask these questions. So these activities are listed in your resource guide. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. Are there any questions that we can answer for you before we depart for the day? I see Umida added clipchamp.com. Is that a free tool, Umida?
They say it's a free trial.
Free trial. Okay. Does it sound like freemium to you, Emily?
Yes, I love that word, by the way. It's just really, it's a new.
Yeah, you actually do video editing in Canva as well. I've discovered that recently. All right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Nice.
So y'all have been talking about ChatGPT. Do you use the paid version? Because I know there is a paid version and it does have some cool bells and whistles. So like Emily, you were talking a lot about it a lot. So are you using the freemium or are you doing the paid?
I'm using the free version. I haven't paid for ChatGPT. So, and you know, like, admittedly, I don't use it for a long period of time to do a lot of things at once. So I don't really exceed the language limit. Um, I've so I don't typically also, and this is also a personal preference. I'm trying not to be stifled by ChatGPT myself. So I'm trying to use it limitedly. I'm trying to use it in ways that like I'm mostly curious. I'm like, can you help me with this task and in what way? And then once I get a couple of exchanges back and forth, I'm usually satisfied with whatever I got back, that I feel either confident in its final version or I'm going to tweak it just a little bit that I don't need ChatGPT anymore. But I have yet to pay for ChatGPT. So I've been
Okay.
very impressed. So
Thank you. And if I can kind of do a piggyback on that, you were also talking about Canva. And so I haven't explored AI in Canva or in Padlet. So I'm just curious if you have a minute that you can talk about either of those,
Yeah.
Canva and Padlet, either or whatever. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually have to talk about both because I've seen it. So Canva, most of my students use it for image generating. So you can type in a phrase and Canva will generate these beautiful backdrops that you can choose for a lot of reasons. And also Padlet, I did a classroom observation in an ESL classroom, and Padlet has a feature where you can type in a word and you press the I don't know how to draw button, and it's like a generator of the word you type in. So I saw an ESL teacher doing a vocabulary lesson where the person typed in the word and then pressed, I don't know how to draw, and an image came up. So it was a great visual support for the student learning English with Padlet. It was a beautifully done lesson.
Wow. Thank you for those nuggets. I appreciate it. This has
You're
been,
welcome.
thank y'all. This is my first time attending, but I'm hoping I'm on the list now.
Yeah, you are fantastic. Yeah, and I've been trying to play with Canva as well. I have like no artistic bones in my body, and yet I have a brand new profile picture for our efforts here at EKU in AI. I made that in Canva this morning. I get so frustrated. I do tech tools, but I get really frustrated really easy with tech tools. So this is a big thing for me. And I've also done the I can't draw in Padlet, and I've been pleasantly surprised every time. But yeah, Canva that we use is free. And Emily, you actually use Claude quite a bit too, don't you?
Yes, I've actually used Claude and Diffit. So Claude is a document that it's a platform that you can upload documents to. And I actually graded with Claude. So I actually I de-identified the assignment. It was a case study in a graduate class I taught. I de-identified it. I had a rubric and I asked Claude to, using the rubric attached, give me a score and narrative feedback to give the student. And then I read the case study myself so I could become familiar with the student's work. I submitted an exemplar to Claude, so I used like the best case study I could possibly think about so we could use that as the example. And then I had a framework for subsequent grading submissions for narrative feedback. And it was pretty, and someone asked earlier, like in a previous session, like, wasn't that so time consuming? And initially it was because I had to double read like and do the work to Claude. But after Claude gave me a framework, I didn't have to spend that time doing that. And it was remarkable. Like there were some instances where the student didn't specify quantitative data in their case study, and they didn't. Like I read the case studies and students were being specific about their quant data. So that was actually a huge thing. And then Diffit is a differentiated text AI platform that creates different instructional resources by different grade level and language. So you can create second grade Arabic, third grade Chinese, fifth grade English,
Swahili.
like anything. And they have so many languages. And ChatGPT is good for rare languages too. So you can type something in, have it translated, and it can read it out loud. If the student can't read in their first language, they can listen to it with the audio feature. So there's just so many supports here. It's like, and that's the cool thing is just trying all this stuff on, and you don't know what's out there until you just start dabbling, really, just trying it on.
So we are a minute past time. I just want to thank everyone for your time and attention and joining us today. We love talking about AI and sharing our experience with you. So hopefully we can inspire you to do cool things in the classroom. By signing up for this talk today, even if people weren't able to attend in real time, everybody will get a copy of the recording. So feel free to share that out. Feel free to share the resources. And if at any time you have questions for either Emily or myself, our contact information is on that first slide. Feel free to reach out to us by email. Even if we can't answer your questions, we know a lot of people who do a lot of cool AI things. We're happy to connect you. So thank you all again. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we hope to see you at future AI programming.
I put Diffit and Claude in the chat if you needed the spelling. I wasn't sure. Sometimes it's so Diffit for differentiated and Claude. So really great. And they're all free. They're all free. So
Free's the best.
thank you.